Oh, man. Whew, that was a sneeze. Did you know that I sneeze when the sun comes out or when I go out to the sun? It's true. They're called sunshine sneezes. And only until recently I've discovered that they're hereditary. So I think Lucy is going to have sunshine sneezes. Yeah, Liz doesn't sneeze when she's out in the sun. As a matter of fact, she thinks I'm crazy. It's like, oh, come on. It's like, no, whenever you go out and the sun kind of gets in your eyes and it makes your nose tickle and things like that, doesn't bother her. Bothers me, though. So there you go. It's sunny out. It's beautiful. I'd like to tell you the fabulous story about when I was in football in middle school. And because I was homeschooled, I got to show up at a time that was different from other kids. Mainly, I showed up early to football practice, just slightly early, just to beat the rush, and then I didn't have to, scramble, look for my football pads and stuff like that. Just a few minutes. It wasn't much at all. But it ended up that I had a few extra minutes to spare to actually help set up some of the pads out on the football field. So I asked the coach, I said, hey, is it cool if I just start pulling out the pads if in fact I have a few minutes? And he said, sure, yeah, that'd be much appreciated. That's wonderful. So I did, just helping him out, trying to be a nice fella. Well, one day I showed up to football practice. There I was in the locker room all by myself, putting on my shoulder pads and everything, and in walks this PE teacher, this fellow. He walks up to me, says, "Don't you ever come in here unless you have expressed permission?" And I said, "I did. You can talk with the football coach." "I don't buy that. I'm not convinced." Don't you hate it when people say, "I'm not convinced"? Because you can't do anything about that. It's like, look, it's not my fault that you're not convinced of all of this evidence I'm presenting before you. I'm presenting it, either you agree or you disagree. Say one or the other, but don't just stand there and say, "I'm not convinced." That's the equivalent of saying, guess again. Nope. You haven't convinced me. It's just ridiculous. But of course, I was just this kid who is 12 or 13 years old, and I wasn't familiar with adult grown men screaming in my face. And so I did what any, tough football player would do. I cried. Now, as you know from previous stories, I was a crybaby. But at this point, I was getting a lot better, okay? And I said, "Okay, all right, I will leave the locker rooms. I'm very sorry for being here outside of school hours." He said, That's right, you better be sorry. I think he was in the military or something. It's like, why are you a PE coach in middle school? Well, so I left immediately, and that means I had my football pads on, walking along the halls. But I wasn't crying yet, because I was like, okay, all right, I'm not going to give this guy the privilege of seeing him get at my emotions. But I did eventually start sort of welling up as I was walking along the halls towards the principal's office. I actually knew the principal quite well. I knew his family. His really, really cool family. And really nice kids and stuff. They still are nice kids. Well, I showed up there and rang the bell, ding, and one of the students who was volunteering in the office kind of came out from the back room, and there was this football player and all his stuff, with tears welling up in his eyes. He said, I have had a teacher yell at me, and I was wondering if it would be possible to express my feelings to the principal." And really trying to bottle in these feelings. What a mature little kid I was. Well, the principal called me in, and I told him about things, and eventually they did reprimand this teacher, and they were like, "Come on, guy, have a little grace, okay?" And if a student says that he is here for a certain reason, give him some slack. Give him the benefit of the doubt, i.e. grace. So anyway, that is the wonderful story of how grown men can be just as immature, if not more immature, than a middle school student. And that is also the story of me talking with the principal who had kids who were homeschooled. That's right. That's the zinger to the story. All his kids were homeschooled. Isn't that hilarious? The principal. Just goes to show what he thought of the public school system.